Our next speaker is the smoothest voice in the game. He hosts ABL Live. If you haven't watched that, you should definitely tune in and call in. Make sure your volume's not all the way up because it does irritate everybody and they're just screeching in the comment section. He's conservative. He's from Virginia. And I'm very glad he's here. Anthony Brian Logan.
Wow. Thank you all for being here. It's going to be a tough call, man, but I'm trying. Oh, man. Hey, I've had a great time since I've been here. Came in yesterday. I saw a lot of you out at Low Brown. Seen a lot of you today. Met a lot of you. Great people. Very nice. It's a lot different from where I come from in Virginia. It's a little bit, it's just weird. The culture here is beautiful. I love y'all. So I just want to thank you for that. My topic for today is called boxes. That's going to be the name of it. But before I get into my topic, I just want to tell you a little bit about me. Now, I'm originally from a place called Rand, West Virginia, very small, about 1,000 people. In the state, it's about 95% white. It's like a black enclave in a mostly white place. So the culture there is much different. And living in the inner city area and then coming from that area is much different. People don't really understand. They talk about, oh, the blacks are in poverty, the blacks are in poor in these cities. But when you come to a small area like that, you have no idea what you take for granted. Being able to walk to a grocery store, a corner store, none of that. Stoplights, police, none of that. So it's much different. And then there is no violence. There is no crime. You can pretty much just be outside chilling. Nobody's going to bother you. But where I'm at, it's a lot more money, but for some reason, there's more violence and crime. So I just want to give you that part of my upbringing and tell you about this whole thing about, oh, it's because of the racism. It's because of the poverty in these inner cities. That's why they're violent. Well, how is it so when where I come from is much poorer? It's much less resources that are available to the average person. So that is the first part. Now, how I grew up, I moved to Virginia at a very young age, probably like when I was about an infant, basically. I would go back and forth to West Virginia and Virginia, spend time. Now, when I was in Virginia living there, the experience was a little bit different, much different than you may think. Inner city areas, low income areas, but I was able to just, how can I say, I was able to kind of grow and blossom as a person much differently than the average person would think coming from my background. Coming from the city, probably about majority black, with about 100,000 people, you may think crime, violence, but me, I was in the video games, I was in the comic books, I was just playing like a regular kid. I didn't have all these problems like, oh man, the world's coming to an end, I live in the hood. No, I had fun. It was fun for me and fun for everybody around. Unfortunately, some of us got caught up in the streets, some of us got caught up in problems, but that wasn't for me. So that's that part of it. Now, as I got older, I got more into technology. That was my thing. I'm an artist, I'm a graphic designer by trade. And I got more into comics, more into reading, more into stuff like that, and that was my main thing. So I started to pursue that as a career. Now, once I got to be about 19 or 20, I'm in college, I'm like, what am I going to do? I know some of you were in here today, you're in college, you're like, what am I going to do? What's going to be my next venture in life? And that's where I was. So I looked at myself, I'm like, what can I do that's good? What can I contribute to the world? What can I contribute to the black community, so to speak? So I came up with the idea of being a graphic designer. I could start my own business. I could service other businesses. That was my main thing. So that was my thought process from a pretty young age. And that's how I've been able to be here today. I had a lot of time to be able to have time to myself and not be in the corporate structure. I've been self-employed for about 10 years now. I'm 32 years old. That's what I've been doing the whole time. Now, as far as this whole political thing, I've been involved with that for quite a while, but not necessarily in the way you may think. Not necessarily in the way of, oh, I'm part of the Republican Party, the Democrat Party. I was always, as a child, growing up as a liberal, even though our family was very conservative, because you're coming from West Virginia, it's very, very, very Christian. I got family that have churches. I got family that are preachers. I got family that are very into the church. So I was raised with Christian values. If any of you subscribe to me, you know I don't curse, I don't yell, I don't scream, I don't holler, because that's part of my conservative upbringing. However, when you're in the black community, a black American, you're always taught, you must be a liberal, you must vote Democrat. If you don't, you're racist, you're a bigot, you're Uncle Tom, coon, sellout, all kind of names. But as I got older, I'm like, hey, it doesn't make any sense here, because why am I being called all these names for being a conservative politically, but yet I was raised intentionally to be a conservative socially. To me, it didn't make any sense. And as I got older, I kind of just married those two philosophies together, conservative, socially and politically. So that's pretty much what it is about me. Now, the reason why I told you my life story there was to basically bring up the title of boxes, the topic of boxes. Why are boxes important? Why are they bad to have? Now, what I mean by that is the box of, because of who you are, because of your ethnicity, because of where you come from, you must behave a certain way. You must fit into a certain category. And the box really just limits you from being able to go through life and live a fulfilled life, because you're not able to reach out of your box. It's just like if you put a mouse into a very small box, all that mouse will know is whatever is put into it, and there's not much room for him to explore to see more. He can't go out in the field, he can't go out in the open world and discover what else is out there. All he knows is, okay, it's cardboard, it's food, and that's it. If he is released from the box, he has no idea what to do with himself. He has no idea how to conduct himself in the world. So that's why boxes are not a good thing. Now, the box I've always been in my whole life, for the most part, has been one of political liberalism. That's been the main thing, and I'm trying to break out of that box, and I have broken out of that box. Now, as far as boxes are concerned, people look at me sometimes and they think, well, what are you? Like, when I was on the plane here, I'm coming from Virginia. It's a very big military area. We've got a very big military base, biggest naval base in the world, and I come here because I have a base as well. And I was asked 10 times, hey, are you in the military? You a military guy? It's like, no, not in the military. But anybody's wondering that, I'm not in the military, never been in the military, but that's always been what's asked. Or they say, oh, you play basketball or something. If I was to play basketball, I'm telling you, I'm not good. I'd be the last guy you pick, so. I'm not a basketball player. I'm not in the military. I'm not a game maker, never been locked up. I like comic books. I like video games. I like politics. That's me. So, and being able to reach outside of a box is important, because if you're not able to do that, then how are you going to contribute to the world? If everybody's the same, if everybody's like monochromatic, they have no layers to themselves, how are you going to be able to contribute to the world? You have no ability to be able to do anything different than the next person did before you, or the person after you. Everybody's the same. It's like an assembly line. You got to have diversity of opinion, diversity of thought, not just diversity of physical appearance. I think that's where a lot of us go wrong. We say, oh, well, diversity, that's just how we look. You know, you're from Mexico, you're from America, you're from Europe, wherever you're from. That is not true diversity, in my opinion. It's all about how we think, how we behave, how we look at the world. That is true diversity. And that is what being outside of the box, to me, represents. Sorry, here, looking at my notes. Boxes don't define us, they often divide us. It's like what was said earlier. When we stick to a certain political ideology, we're always like, well, this has to be me, and if you're on the other side, I can't get along with you because you're over there. But once you break outside of your box, now you're able to say, okay, you over here, you got something I agree with, you have one thing that I'm cool with, you over here, same thing, we're able to kind of come to one common accord. We're able to kind of come to one. And that's what I really want to get across in this talk here. Being able to reach across the aisle and not be so tied up in your political ideology. That's my main thing. So basically, I implore all of you, you're in college, don't just look at things like, well, I have to be this way. This is what I've been told my whole life. This is what my parents told me. This is what my grandma, my granddad, everybody wants me to do. If I don't do it, they're disappointed. Just look at yourself and say, hey, wait a minute. What's going on with the world? Can I be somebody that's different? Must I look at everything from what someone else has told me? Just do some reading, do some research, and be able to come to your own conclusion on life and everything about life. So that's pretty much all I got. My name is Anthony Brown Logan. Thank you for listening.
I can have Benga and Anthony also come up. We have a quick Q&A session. Any questions you guys have?
think, in my opinion, a couple points from this. You guys were great. You guys are charismatic, and I love a lot of what you have to say. But I think we're up against stuff that's a little bit more deeply entrenched than what you're willing to acknowledge. First of all, so the episode that happened in Oregon with the people who didn't want to make the gay wedding cake, right? I don't agree with it. I'm not religious. I don't have anything against gay people, but that's their business, okay? If they don't want to do that, just like you're saying, if there's people that are against that, they could create a boycott, and that person's business is going to decline. As a business person, that's a poor choice to make to exclude people, right? But if that's what they want to do, that's their business. Trying to use the power of the state, and that's what happened in this case. Using the power of the state to tell these people that they have to make the gay wedding cake, that is out of control. And those people got fined $175,000 or something. Their business, they're out of business, right? So a boycott would have been more appropriate. People are against that, that's fine. However, I'm guessing you've never worked in corporate America. I've worked for huge, multi-billion-dollar, multinational corporations. Every huge corporation, Pepsi, Coca-Cola, whatever, has offices of corporate social responsibility or something of that nature, right? And they are basically, the people who run those things are social justice warriors, okay? So what you're up against in that advertising world, and the people who are responsible for the public relations of these companies are run by social justice warriors. There's no way to defeat that, in my opinion. There's no way to.
What's going to be your question?
It was not really a question. That's just.
Okay. I agree with what he's saying. The thing about it is, if a company is not going to do something, the state should come in and say, "Hey, you must do that." That shouldn't be up to them. Now, if the consumer doesn't like it, you should say, "We're not going to go to that place anymore, and we're just dropping out of business that way." And then the free market says something else will pop up, like you said earlier. A new business will pop up and say, "Hey, we're Christian. We serve gay wedding cakes here." So all that business that they lost will go over there instead. That's the way it should be done. Because the thing about it is, once you cave in one time to that, it's going to happen over and over and over again. It's going to be the next thing that comes up that says, "Okay, you know what? I'm transgender, and I feel like I'm 6 years old now, even though I'm 50. So I want to come in. I want to have this Christian store make me a little tea party dress, and I want it. And it has to fit me as well, even though that's not possible. So what do you do in that situation? You gotta kind of, that's kind of an absurd example, but things like that do happen. And a lot of it is people trying to exert money, people trying to get paid. It's not even about their feelings. So.
Well, I agree with that to the extent that I think consumer pressure is the way to go. It's definitely preferable. I think in some cases, the state getting involved isn't necessarily a bad thing. So, for example, firing people for their political views. I think that's a scenario where the state could come in a little bit. In terms of forcing companies to serve particular customers, then maybe not so much. In terms of corporate people in corporations being social justice warriors, I'm absolutely sure that's the case. But on the other hand, companies cannot ignore when they're losing billions of dollars.
And just to add, and this isn't a question, but just to add, but you'll see, it's, for example, Steven Crowder does. It's similar to what you pointed out here. That Protein World company, they're not Coca-Cola. They're fairly small.
They're much smaller.
Steven Crowder gets like gun manufacturers and smaller up-and-coming companies that support his values to be advertisers for him, right? I think that's a little bit strategy-wise probably a smarter way to go, because this isn't like a movement can automatically change 50 years of corporate evolving into this.
Oh, sure, but you have to start. It might be you have to start somewhere.
Sure,
and,
sure.
Certainly, you've got to reward the brand, but whether they're small or large, do the right thing. Mm-hmm. But there have been cases of larger brands having to submit to consumer pressure over free speech, like Intel, for example, massive corporation. They pulled out of some progressive news organizations. I think Logan was one of them in 2014 because of the Gamergate boycott. So it has happened, and I think. Regardless if there are social justice warriors in the company or not, companies will find it hard to ignore it if there are millions and millions of consumers getting active.
I absolutely hate government mandate. I don't like it. The President Obama mandated the restroom thing. I was mad. Not because I was against the LGBT. Who are you to tell us what to do in El Paso? Why can't the Paso people vote if they want that? Why can't the citizens vote if they want that? And that was very, very. I was mad about that. And going back to the Christian people, to baking the cake, I was mad that the state did what they did to them. I mean, it's just ridiculous. At the same time, I'm speaking to them because I'm a Christian. I'm speaking to them too, and to all Christians out there. We need to be very careful. But now we use religion, now we use the name of God, and all of these issues. We have to be very, very, very careful about it. And again, I will say it again. God does not care whether you make a cake and for a gay couple or not. It doesn't. So it's two parts that I'm addressing. The state thing I disagree with. It shouldn't be. At the same time, we as supposed to be loving people, supposed to accept everybody and love people. We have to be very careful. And that's where I'm coming from.
All right, who do you select?
Sure.
I have a question, especially for you, Mr. Pasadeko, is that correct?
Yes.
Your speech was very moving, but when you talked about us being involved, and you never really gave any guidance to that, because for those students who are protesting, they believe that they're getting involved in a positive way.
Absolutely.
So, or I can understand the merit behind that, because, I mean, if you want to do something good, you feel like you're involved and you're caught up in emotion, yeah, go for it. It's what you want to do. You have the right to that. But you don't really seem to be advocating towards that notion. So what kind of advice do you have to offer to those students, or for all students?
He talked about it. He mentioned about having a conversation, sitting down, okay, and exhaust all the possibilities. If there's an issue, in your personal life, you ask yourself, you have a problem. What is my problem? Then you sit down, what is the solution to my problem? You'll be amazed what happened. It's magical. When I ran for student body president, I got the yellow pad. How can I win the student government president? Never been involved before in student government association. Never. My first time, 3 weeks before the election. And I have so many ideas that came to me. And I went through some are good, some are bad. I started implementing them and I won. So there's a problem. Many of these people, they don't want a solution to anything. They just want to protest. They want to just fight. Again, remember I told you, politicians will come, special interest group will come to you and ask you to get involved in their cause. We need students to be organized. You can get 10 schools, the major leagues, we want to get them and talk to them and have them do certain things for us. That's what I'm talking about. When I won the election, they were going to take it away from me because they said some of my teammates did something and everything I want of you. They were going to be protest. Some students said, no, Benga worked very hard. He campaigned better. You can't take the election from him. No, we're going to fight. We're going to do anything. I would get the lawyers. I said, no, stop. Let's talk about it. Let's work things out. There'll be some times where we might need to protest. But again, what I'm telling you is you have to be very careful what you're getting involved with. Be very careful. You can't just get involved in all of these things going on. What benefit does it do for you? What benefit does it do for the school? What benefit does it do for the country? I will end by this. That's why I like President Trump. It doesn't back down to media. It doesn't bow down to all of those political pandering and everything and what have you. Actually he apologizes to his family members if he made a mistake to them, to friends. If something went wrong, he doesn't want people to tell him to demand apology from him. Oh, you have to apologize for this. And immediately there's put pressure to make him to cave in. And he doesn't back down and to doing things like that. I told you about to get involved. If you are going to college, get involved in honor society, get involved in a kind of society, get involved in CEO College Entrepreneur Organization. It's helping me right now when I was a student. We learn about entrepreneurship. We get involved in franchising. We get involved in things that will help us build our life. That will make us to be independent instead of dependent on government. That will make us to create a business and do something for ourselves. You get involved in that. So you're going to get involved in the protest, do your research very well. Then decide if you want to get involved with that.
Thank you. All right, all the way in the back.
I didn't really get to listen to your speech regarding the whole LGBTQ thing, but quite trying guy. It doesn't seem really as drastic issue or discussion we'll always be having. Because again, if you look at what you stated about Christianity or any religious aspect, it's mostly weird and derogatory because we're all human beings. So if everyone abided by that, that scenario wouldn't have even been into reality. It wouldn't even transpire if everyone followed that exact thing. So my question is, I mean, everyone keeps talking about changing culture, but would you feel that the way that we think should be changed to where it's not addressing towards educational, but more of informing the masses, informing the public to try to get them to understand what's going on within their own reality so that we would be able to go ahead and be on that same conscience level to where we can come down as human beings and discuss things and reach that consensus. Because I mean that's one thing that I'm continuously always constantly thinking about every single day is, well, how am I going to be able to go ahead and talk to certain people that don't align with me or that disagree with me continuously? And it's I just feel it's always just informing, just being bringing I guess your data, your statistics, but at the same time being receptive to hear their data and their statistics and see what kind of finite.
I got you. So I think you're trying to ask, how do you come to a common ground with someone, basically? If they're on one side, you're on one side, you have your stats, they have their stats, how do you meet in the middle? Is that what you're saying?
Would it be best to just inform people, just regardless of it, just any data, any statistics to where they can garner it, just not for one opposition, but for both oppositions?
I mean, the information is out there. I mean, the information.
I personally don't believe there's left or right in political spectrum because everything's just complicated. But to analyze that with any issue, you can present it with right and left statistics and data and be like, hey, so this is what's happening regarding with this issue.
Well, data isn't really partisan, honestly.
Yeah.
I mean, if you have data that says 100% of one person does one thing, then that's not left or right. That's just a statistic. Now, what you could say is some people, they just basically specialize in giving one set of stats rather than all stats. That could be it. If they had all the stats, the story would be different. So I do agree we should do that.
There's a saying that I had this kind of conversation with one of my friends, and he told me, he said an interesting statement, and it really resonates. And he says, life is subjective, but truth is objective. But that doesn't mean that truth can be subjective. Because again, how you pointed out about the youngsters, I mean, all you have to do is just quantify the data and just, it's always there. It can be just a fraction of what the actual ratio is, but it's not the full story. And that's why I just feel, regardless of it, even if it is biased, you let the individuals know, hey, this is biased, but here's all this data from both sides.
Well, yeah, I mean, if you give all data from both sides, then it can't be biased. If you give all the data available, then it can't be biased. If you only give one piece of the data to just fit your narrative, then that's when you have bias. So I do agree with you.
I'm just hard. Let
me ask you. If you watch CNN, which party do you think they're more aligned to?
I guess on that political spectrum, it would be more liberal.
What about Fox News?
Right.
Exactly. They want us divided. I told you earlier.
From
the top. And everybody will throw out some mumbo jumbo and okay, here's this, and this person is better, and that person. You have to come to, it's going to happen between you and I over here. If you follow the media, you're going to be feeding the bad wolf I talked about. And at the end of the day,
it's info, really. Info, anything could be biased. I mean, like you said, I have my own personal influences and personal perspectives on certain things. So anything that I tell you regarding this issue, it's going to have my own biases. So just info can be so.
Other questions.
I'll just say one thing on that though, briefly. Like, you're always going to have bias if you can't eliminate bias. That's why you need diversity of opinion. Like, watch CNN and Fox.
Yes. Get all the information and come to your own conclusion.
Do you think that memes has the thing to do with Trump being elected?
Yeah. Absolutely. Yes. I mean, the whole meme culture, social media, 4chan, Reddit, all of that, everything, YouTube, they put a big part in it. Everything helps because if you look at the real data, like you said, my man in the back, if you look at all the data and you see how much money Trump had, versus how much money Hillary had. I think Trump had like, what, 700 million or less?
Yeah.
Hillary had like 1.2 billion or more. And Trump still won. And a lot of that is because of the way he was able to market himself and the way others were able to market him. With social media, with the memes, YouTube, Facebook, Twitter, even Trump himself revolutionized the whole Twitter game. Everybody's worried about, well, what is Trump tweeting? We're talking about it on Twitter. He revolutionized that whole game, and that definitely helped him win because he had no money.
Yeah, it was an enthusiasm gap. That's why you saw all the memes. Like Trump's supporters were just much more enthusiastic. I will say the name of this controversy, the name of this conference, reminded me a little bit of "He Will Not Divide Us." My favorite story of the year by far. Just beautiful.
Trump was a master brander. I mean, I was just fascinated by the way he did everything. I said, wow.
Yes.
Russia didn't help him win. He won that election. It was very, very smart. I mean, I'm sorry. He see the media like a dog. You wake up in the morning, you just, what can I feed them today? And they'll go on Twitter, waiting for it. Boom. And everybody go crazy. And they will go back again. Okay, I don't mean to say that. I don't mean to say that. Okay, this was like what I meant. And it's just a bunch of nothing. And he was able to capitalize on controlling the news media. And he won.
So I have a question from the live chat. Should right-wingers attempt to convert or reform Silicon Valley, or should right-leaning tech entrepreneurs try to create a counter-tech industry and smash their, I'll just say crap?
I think counter-tech has been tried. I think the obstacle it faces is that it will only get the conservatives, it will only get the free speech defenders. Because like Twitter censorship on social media only really affects conservatives, only really affects people on the right. So if you make an alternate platform, there's no reason for the normies to move over. There's no reason for other people or non-political people to move over. That's the obstacle you face with.
Yeah, I mean, about that, there's so much you can do about that. I think when you're talking about tech industry, there's a lot of money involved. So when you got a lot of money like that, it's difficult for you to see things from the average person's perspective as far as being conservative. So it's kind of hard to really, convert them because what's the incentive to convert? They really don't have any. So that's a hard task there.
I will say that Facebook is much better than Twitter, but they're still bad in terms of removing conservative content and enforcing very strict content policy. But they're much better than Twitter in terms of reinstating people who've been banned for the wrong reasons. I think part of the reason for that is because they were really, really scared by that trending news controversy that happened last summer, I think, when the Senate threatened to get involved and hold Facebook to account. So I think you should certainly try and pressure existing companies in addition to making alternatives.
Now, obviously, the country is extremely divided. That's why we're all here today. But a lot more people are starting to pay attention to what's going on. People are starting to talk, whether to each other or just out into the void. They're talking, yelling, whatever they might be doing. Do you believe that this whole situation that we're in would be a bridge to becoming more disjointed or becoming more unified as a whole in society, like on the smaller scale?
Well, I think we'll become more unified. I think people are starting to see what the extreme left is and what the extreme right is, and they don't like either side. And people are kind of going back towards the middle because the average person really is in the middle. They're not really extreme left or extreme right. So when they see both of those exhibited, it's just like, well, I don't like either side. Let me come back towards the middle. And that's where everybody pretty much needs to be, in the middle. That's how you bridge the divide, comes to the middle. So I think that is what's happening.
Yeah, I think there's a new cultural centrism emerging, like they call the alt center of social media. So I think we're going to see some of that. People were really annoyed by the social justice warriors. Now they're becoming annoyed by the alt right. Yes. So there will be a new center emerging. I agree with that.
Many people, or at least many of the population of Americans, they want to help other countries, and many of them want to help ourselves first. I'm guessing. Well, I want to ask, where should Americans focus their attention to? Should they focus to other countries or fix themselves first?
Fix ourselves first, 100%. Because how can you help anybody else if you can't help yourself? Have your own house in order before you go out and try to help someone else. Now, I'm not saying we should not be humanitarian, of course, But at the same time, like I said, how are you going to help somebody? And the thing about it is about being the woke police. That's not. I think a lot of that has deeper roots than a lot of us really want to talk about here today. I don't want to get nobody in trouble with nobody triggered, but it's a lot of other stuff going on around the world that we don't want to talk about. And that's why we're overseas doing stuff like that. And I think once we stop doing that kind of stuff, we'll focus more on ourselves. And we'll be better off for it.
American people are generous people. There's nothing you can do to stop Americans from being generous. I mean, we don't have to wait for the government to do anything. We do stuff. I mean, there's hurricane, if there's anything, they give. I mean, they are givers. They give consistently. And when you talk generally, I think we should focus on ourselves first, make sure that things is done very well. But there's no way you can stop Americans from giving. It's in their nature, it's in their DNA.
Yeah.
Don't want to help.
Yeah, I don't think it's been one or the other either. I mean, I take a moderate view on foreign policy. I'm not in favor of like massive, stupid interventions like Iraq. I think the latest attack on the Assad regime was stupid. I don't think you should weaken the Assad regime because they were well worked against ISIS and extremism. But on the other hand, I think it's right that the US armed the Kurds in northern Syria. They've done a very good job taking down ISIS. So I think you can do both. Just obviously don't go overboard with the intervention.
All right.
Oh man.
Yeah, I had one question about the boxes you were talking about. I feel like one thing that would help bridge the divide is that, one of the problems that's keeping the divide as is that people are being told that they should be distilled to the components of who they are, what they are, instead of who they are. And do you have any advice just to how to get people out of that mentality?
The best way is for each individual to do it on their own part and not be beholden to someone else. Think as an individual, and then when you have more individuals doing it, it'll become a collective. As long as everybody thinks, I have to be in this box because that person says it, or that person says it, you'll never be able to get out. But then when it's that person and that person, they're able to say, I'm not in the box anymore, you're going to see a lot more of it. Because imagine, what if everybody in this room right now was in the box, and then they just say, you know what, I'm not in the box anymore. There's no more pressure. You can pretty much do whatever you want, and everybody's free. That's where you got to do it. It's not going to be an overnight process, not at all. But it's got to start somewhere, and start with you.
So just lead by example?
Lead by example. That's all you can do. You know what I'm saying? Be your own man, be your own individual, and be your own woman if you ain't here. Just be who you are. And don't let anybody try to tell you who you have to be. You know what is right and what is wrong intrinsically in your heart. Just follow that.